mercy, God, no!
Okay, we're gonna go back in time for this one. Way back, over 500 years, to a story that is just as terrifying as it is bizarre. In 1518, the city of Strasbourg was hit by a plague. But this wasn't your typical disease. This was a plague of an unstoppable, deadly urge to dance. I want you to just picture this for a second. It's the middle of summer. The streets of your city are filled with people dancing. This is no festival. This is a horrifying spectacle. We're talking hundreds of people convulsing in the streets day and night, literally unable to stop. And make no mistake, the people who were dancing weren't having a good time. Contemporary accounts make it terrifyingly clear that they were trapped. They were in agony, fully aware of what was happening to their bodies, but just completely powerless to do anything about it. This painting here really gives us a glimpse into the sheer madness of it all. Eyewitnesses talked about people with flailing arms, their bodies just spasming uncontrollably. They said their eyes were glassy and vacant, their feet were swollen and bloodied. But they were possessed by this mania, dancing and dancing until they literally collapsed. And the scale of this thing is just staggering. In the span of a single month, this compulsion consumed around 400 people. Men, women, and even children. It spread through the city not like a germ, but like a behavioral virus. And this was absolutely deadly. At its worst, historical records say that as many as 15 people were dying each day. And not from some infection, but from sheer exhaustion, strokes, and heart attacks. They were literally dancing themselves to death.
So the big question is, how on earth did this all start? Well, this bizarre and tragic story all begins with just one person, the first dancer. Our patient zero, if you want to call her that, was a woman named Frau Troffea. One day, she just stepped out into a quiet street, and with no music, no reason at all, she started to dance. She didn't stop for hours, eventually collapsing, only to get up the next day and start all over again. So what started with one woman quickly became a local curiosity. But then, a few of the people watching her started to join in. Within a single week, there were over 30 people dancing. Within a month, the city was in the grip of a full-blown epidemic. So you have this crisis unfolding that nobody can explain. The city's leaders are desperate. They consult doctors, and their response? Well, let's just say, by any standard, it was an absolute catastrophe. So the official diagnosis, based on the cutting-edge medical theory of the time, was a natural disease caused by hot blood. Seriously. The physicians believed that too much hot blood in the brain was what was causing this madness. And their prescription for this hot blood problem? More dancing. Yeah, their logic was that the victims had to dance the fever out of their systems, day and night. So the city leaders cleared out public spaces. They built a massive wooden stage, and they even hired musicians and healthy dancers to keep the afflicted moving. And as you can probably guess, the result was a complete and utter disaster. By putting the dancers on a public stage, the authorities turned this affliction into a spectacle, and that just amplified the contagion, as more and more onlookers were swept up into the frenzy, which dramatically increased the death toll. Obviously, hot blood was not the answer. So for centuries, people have been trying to figure out what really happened in Strasbourg. Let's take a look at the leading modern theories that try to solve this 500-year-old mystery. Two main theories have really emerged. The first is ergot poisoning, The idea that people had accidentally eaten bread that was contaminated with a powerful hallucinogenic mold. The second, and the one that's much more widely accepted today, is something called mass psychogenic illness. You might know it as mass hysteria. When you look closely, the ergot poisoning theory just doesn't hold up. For one thing, ergot actually restricts blood flow to your arms and legs, which would make dancing for days pretty much physically impossible. The symptoms don't really match either. Ergotism causes violent, jerky convulsions, not the kind of coordinated, albeit frenzied, dancing that was described. So that leaves us with mass psychogenic illness. And this theory suggests that the plague was actually a psychological outbreak, one that was born from a perfect storm of fear, extreme stress, and some deeply held cultural beliefs. To really get this, you have to understand just how awful conditions were in Strasbourg at the time. The city was basically a pressure cooker. They were dealing with a terrible famine, so people were starving. Terrifying diseases like syphilis and smallpox were running rampant. And on top of all that, there was this powerful spiritual dread, a widespread belief that a saint named Vitus could punish sinners by cursing them with compulsive dancing. The psychological stress on people was just immense. So you see, there wasn't one single cause. It was this toxic combination of factors: psychological stress, the harsh environment, and these powerful cultural beliefs that created a kind of social tinderbox. Frau Troffea's bizarre dance was just the spark that lit the whole thing on fire.
So the final explanation doesn't take us to poisons or viruses. It takes us into the darkest corners of the human mind itself. The dancing plague wasn't some external invader. It came from within. Historian John Waller put it perfectly. The dancers weren't possessed by some demon. They were possessed by their own anxieties. They essentially entered a dissociative trance state, where their bodies acted out the very fears their culture had given them a script for. The dancing curse of St. Vitus. In the end, the dancing plague of 1518 was a psychic contagion. It was a shared, unconscious stress response for a whole community facing horrors they couldn't control. Starvation, disease, the fear of damnation. This trance-like state was a dark, tragic, and ultimately deadly form of psychological escape. And that leaves us with a pretty chilling thought, doesn't it? The events in Strasbourg are an extreme example of how stress, belief, and social pressure can shape our behavior in incredibly powerful ways. And it just makes you wonder, what terrors lie dormant in all of our minds, just waiting for the right conditions to be unleashed?